Good evening. It is 5:15 this Monday, April 10th, and the Carroll City Council is now in session. Would you all please rise and join with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Okay, roll call, all but Misty. Item number 3 on tonight's agenda is April is Child Abuse Prevention Month 2023 proclamation. Is there anybody from Family Resource here? No. I will go ahead and just read this and be as brief as I can. Whereas in calendar year 2021, 35,593 assessments for child abuse or neglect were made to the Iowa Department of Human Services by Child Welfare and their numbers. Whereas child abuse and neglect is a serious problem affecting every segment of our community, and finding solutions requires input and action from everyone. And whereas our children are our most valuable asset and will shape the future of the city of Carroll. And whereas the child abuse can have a long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that having everlasting consequences for victims of abuse. And whereas protective favors are conditions that reduce or eliminate risk and promote the social, emotional, and developmental well-being of children. And whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of the partnerships created between child welfare professionals, education, health, community, and faith-based organizations, businesses, law enforcement agencies, and families. And whereas communities must make every effort to promote programs and activities that create strong and thriving children and families. And whereas we acknowledge that we must work together as a community to increase awareness about child abuse and contribute to promote the social and emotional well-being of children and families in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. Whereas prevention remains the best defense for our children and families. Now therefore, I, Mark Beardmore, Mayor of City of Carroll, do hereby proclaim April as National Child Abuse Prevention Month in Carroll and urge all citizens to recognize this month by dedicating ourselves to the task of improving the quality of life for all children and families. Thank you for that. Try to get to that now.
Thank you.
Okay, we have item number 4 is the consent agenda. And before you have the consent agenda, which includes the following: the approval of the minutes of the last March 27th, 2023 meeting, approval of this cycle's bills and claims. We have several licenses and permits. We have a renewal of Class C retail alcohol license and special Class A beer permit with outdoor service and catering for the Carroll Brewing Company. We also have a Carroll Merchants Baseball Club retail alcohol license request. This includes a resolution allowing Carroll Merchants Baseball Club to sell alcoholic beverages at Merchants Park, and a new 8-month special Class C retail alcohol license with outdoor sales. And then we also have in the consent agenda the North Youth Sports Complex concession stand lease with Gary McGill. And then we have 3 new housing incentive applications. Great news. And then that would be our consent agenda for tonight. Are there any questions or comments about the consent agenda? If not, I would look for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Tom and Kyle, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Fornero.
Yes.
Schreck. Yes. Bauer.
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Seaman.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Item number 5 is the oral requests and communications from the audience. This would be members of the public wishing to address the council on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. Are there any? No one online? Okay, moving forward. We have under item number 6 on tonight's agenda is ordinances. And the first one is a rural business enterprise ordinance amendment. And unless there's any questions, I would go ahead and open the public hearing. Laura, I show 5:20. Go ahead and open the public hearing. And Aaron, you want to take it from here?
Yep, this is the ordinance amendment that would allow for a ag business in the ag zone. Planning and zoning met last Wednesday on this and approved and recommend to council that we move forward and accept and move and change the ordinance to allow this special exception.
Very good. Any questions for Aaron right away? Okay, I would open up the public hearing to anybody who is in favor of the request for the ordinance amendment. They can come forward and address the council at this time.
I'm Colin Warnemont. I am Dick Warnemont's son. I live in Maple River, Iowa, and I guess I have a few questions, more or less, for the council. Before my questions, though, I do have a statement or a thought to consider if any of you are considering the ordinance. The agricultural climate in today's world is changing vastly. You're seeing a lot of ground today being bought up by billionaires and large corporations that is being used, purely for profit and not, being to the family farms. I know in some of your comments you've mentioned the preservation of ag ground. What we are doing here would help us preserve our farm as a family as well as build upon it, and for not only us but for generations to come. I guess that's my statement. A question I do have about the ordinance is, and this is not to spark debate, it is purely for my own clarity. What would be the consequences to if we were to go beyond the ordinance? Just say one of two things happened where we went past 20,000 square feet or we had more than 15 employees. What would be the conditions the consequences from the city of Carroll?
I think number one, you wouldn't receive the special use permit. Because you're certifying that you're following the directions of the ordinance.
Right.
Is your question, well, what if something happens and we exceed?
Yeah, not today. Not today. I'm just saying in the future.
Yeah.
If we were to try to build, like, just say we were to add on 6,000 square feet rather than, and make it a 21,000 square foot building.
Number one, you'd have to apply for another building permit.
Okay.
If you're gonna add on to the building. Number two, I'm assuming that the city would enforce its zoning ordinance
Okay.
against you. And most likely request some sort of injunction to stop your use of that property in violation of the ordinance.
Okay. So in other
I
words,
can't speak for the council.
no, I
The
understand.
worst case scenario.
So in other words, we'd either have to go somewhere else or stop doing what we're doing. I guess in the same note.
Yeah, I think the plan is for you just to follow what has been set out
Mm-hmm.
in the amended ordinance. Yeah, and if you outgrow that, I think your alternative would be to move elsewhere.
Okay.
An industrial site, a designated industrial site.
Sure. Okay.
And again, please help me out if someone sees that differently.
The only thing I would add is you can ask today's council what their view would be on it, but if you do this 2 years from now, or even this fall or next year, you could have an entirely different mayor and half the council.
That's
So-
kind of where I'm going with this. So and again, this is all for my own clarity, so I understand. I like to be as understanding of something as I possibly can be. If we were to grow and we were to say need to add on and need to, expand our facility, would we have to go through the same steps we did to get this ordinance? Like how we had our neighbors sign off on a building permit or application and things like that. If we were to have all of that in place, would we then be able to move forward with that?
We wouldn't go through the rezoning process, which you
I
did.
guess, yeah.
So yeah, it would eliminate that process, and then we would go to the council to request an ordinance change.
Okay.
It would be shorter, but that would be the next step would be to do another ordinance change.
Sure. Okay. And another reason I'm thinking of this now is just because if nothing really changes as far as the city expanding or, neighbors are okay with what's going on already and they don't really see that it's going to change much after we add on, if we were to add on, I mean, what difference would it make, I guess, versus having to, pick up and move? So,
Yeah.
Yep.
The only other thing I would add, Colin, is that the P and Z, Planning and Zoning Commission, and quite possibly the city council is trying to accommodate what your present wishes are.
yes, and I thank you for working with us on this. I don't want to leave anything, uncovered, I guess, or in the dark. I just want to know so that in the future, as I'm moving forward with my business, I know, kind of my path.
Yeah.
So,
And if there are other owners of property in your situation,
Mm-hmm.
they will need to come to the Board of Adjustment and, and prove that they're satisfying the amended ordinance too.
Sure.
So it's not only for you, but it's for anybody else that might come in front of the Board of Adjustment.
sure,
Just so, the Board of Adjustment is reviewing these with a standard in place, so it's not well, we like that plan better than this one, even though it
Right.
doesn't follow all the regulations.
sure,
There has to be a set regulation and standards that the Board of Adjustment goes through to award or reject these special use permits.
sure, sure.
And Colin, I might add, a concern for me, to help you along, not to ambush you or anything, was that we give you specifically what you asked for to help you along, and that's what this ordinance reflects in my mind. Also, I looked over, the Board of Adjustment is the final decider, not us. And I looked at, it's chapter 170.36, special use permits, and looked at the application, looked at their standards. And I wanted to make sure that we met what you asked us for based on what you told us about your business, and also that we didn't put any blockades in the way for your getting this special use permit from the Board of Standards. So we also looked at what we built into the ordinance as well as the standards that you have to meet to get this special use permit. And I believe what is in the content in this is helping you along to give you what you initially asked for. When you laid out exactly what your business does, you talked about the size of the pieces, that your building you're using now is 60% family farm use, 40%. And I watched the video again, you're on video, so I went back over that. And so I believe after looking at the final product that a lot of people worked on, that we are trying to help make this possible for you, because we do understand ag is changing.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying that I am restricted today. I'm just thinking
Yeah.
in the future, and because
Yeah.
who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think if I were you, I would focus on the present and looking at the content of this, as well as before you go before the Board of Adjustment, look at their standards. And you'll understand what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, but I appreciate your question.
Well, thank you all.
Did you have another question, or is that?
Nope, that was
pretty
basically
well
it.
covered it? Good.
So,
Yeah, I would only add too that, despite, how much, time and effort and everything that took place, you've got 6 cheerleaders up here that hopes that thing just rocks and rolls out there. So that's why, there was everybody, after that P and Z meeting, we that very next day, we all said, let's try and find a way to make this thing work. So, my hat's off to these 6 cheerleaders up here.
I appreciate your all's cooperation and help with this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, too. Okay, is there anybody else that wants to speak in favor of the variance? Going once? Nobody else? So then I would open it up to anybody that wants to be opposed to the variance. Is there anybody here? And we've received no comment, correct? Either way? Okay. Anybody else going once? Okay, if there's no other comments, pro or con, I would go ahead and close the public meeting. Laura, I've got 5:30. So now we would be directing our attention to the ordinance itself. Council has had ample time to review this. I would seek a motion. The recommendation is to approve the first reading of this. Is that still correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so this would be just the first reading of it, assuming that it goes well, we could address it again in 2 weeks. But is there a motion to approve the variance in the ordinance and the first reading?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Carolyn and then Tom. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Dirks?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Schreck? Yes. Bauer?
Yes.
Bornero?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we're good there. We are now moving to item number 7 on tonight's agenda. And Laura, we're going to talk about the fiscal year '24 budget. And once again, I will open up the public hearing for that. And I got the better part of about 5:32 now, so let's call it 5:32. We'd open up the public hearing for the fiscal '24 budget. And Laura?
Yes, thank you, Mark and council. This is finally the time to wrap this up and talk about our public hearing and then resolution to adopt the budget so it can get filed before this 1 year only deadline of April 30th. Next year, we will go back to our March 31st deadline. But what was included in your packet was is a resolution approving the budget with a proposed tax rate of $12.16. The budget estimate or the notice of the public hearing was published as a requirement in the paper on March 31st. And then also included were the state forms that will get filed with the state when upon council approval. I won't go through each individual page to spare you the details, but we do have online on our city website, cityofcarroll.com/finance, our budget book, as well as other budget information from prior years. But this is a time for anybody to ask questions and open it up to the public for comments. No comments were received in the office prior to the meeting.
You knew I was going to ask.
Yes.
I've heard no comments from the public either. Any comments, city council?
No, I haven't heard anything.
Once again, just yeoman's work for all of you, and thank you and for staying the course. State of Iowa chartered it, and you followed it, so thank you once again. Are there any comments from the public about the stated budget fiscal year '24? Nothing online. Okay, so I will go ahead and close the public meeting, or the public hearing at 5:33. And then now I would seek a motion. The recommendation is council approval for the resolution to adopt fiscal year '24 budget. Is there a motion to that effect?
Oh, it's 23-24 budget.
Yeah, 23, 24.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Laverne, and then was it Kyle or JJ, whoever got it here first? Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Dirks?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Schreck? Yes. Bornero?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, under item number 8, first item is Iowa Finance Authority Down Payment Assistant Program Grant. And Laura, I think you're still up.
Yes. Carla here?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so I'll just make a few opening comments about this. Carla Janney with Region 12 approached us a few weeks ago and asked if the city would be interested in applying for a down payment assistance grant program through the Iowa Finance Authority. And she can give you a lot more details about it and whatnot, but there would be a city match requirement or community match requirement to this, and we can discuss that after we learn about more of the details of what the grant actually offers. So Carla, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here tonight. We are here to talk to you about applying for a home down payment with rehab assistance program for your community. What this program does is it provides down payment assistance along with the potential for rehabilitation on a home purchased by a person that is at 80% of your area median income. And if you look at the sample brochure in your packet, you will see that those start off with about 49.8 of a household of one, and they go on up from there. So what this program does, especially in today's climate, it provides needed down payment assistance so that the client is not paying a whole lot of PMI on their loan. With today's higher interest rates and rising housing costs, the workforce housing, as you know, is stretched to its limit. So what this program can really do for your community by investing in those young families and people that are purchasing, the rehabilitation will provide preservation of your existing housing stock. Your community, as well as every other community in the counties that we serve, suffers from preservation of housing stock. We can't build enough new houses for everyone, so we have to do something with the houses we have. This is a great way to not only help young families get into a home, but it also puts economic value into your community. This comes in the form of either a 5 or a 10-year forgivable loan for the client, which means if they live there for 5 years, it reduces by 20%. If they live there by 10 years, it reduces 10% every year. So that's their payment to get this back. What it does for the banks, they're gonna still sit first. This is gonna sit second. So not only do I get the down payment that I need from that client, I also know that we've tried to rehabilitate the house with everything that is needed in the next 5 years so that the homeowner doesn't have any major purchases over that next 5 years. So obviously, it's a much more attractive financial package than without that. The last time that you applied for this program was in 2014. We assisted 11 homes over 3 years for a total investment in your community of $333,000. Obviously, there's a need. We've been running a different type of down payment program through the county that is countywide over the last 2 years. In 2020, the Carroll County received $192,500. We invested that in 10 homes over the county, and we were done with it in just a little over a year. We reapplied in 2021, and we have $237,000 that will assist 13 clients. So that's about $820,000 worth of investment into this community over the last 9 years. So that's what it does. When we do the rehabilitation, we are also going out and hiring the local contractors. So that money continues to trickle down and touch a lot more people than just the person moving into that home. The grant is going to be due by May 17th, and so we're here to see if you would be interested in applying again. Do you have any questions about the program or what it does for the clients?
You said 2014 was the last time?
Yes, sir.
Since I've been on council, we've been through this once before. Is it something similar to this?
You did a community development block grant, owner-occupied rehabilitation,
Okay.
in which we touched 6 or 7 homes, and that was about another $250,000. But since it's
Okay.
only owner-occupied, I didn't include it in that, so.
Okay. So on these that you did in 2014, has there been any negative impact at all with this? Any problems? Okay. And even the one we just did, the block grant, no problems there too?
No.
Okay.
No, all done. You have a good environment, you're large enough. We actually, at Region 12, have a 3-year wait list for rehabilitation assistance. So this is just one way to help chip away at that. It would be great if we could do a citywide program again, but they're currently not available. We're looking at some other avenues that could assist our whole region on that owner-occupied. But this down payment assistance in today's environment with the interest rates and escalating prices is more important than ever right now.
Carla, is this something that goes on year over year?
You
So-
can apply each year, but if you look at the Category 2 scoring criteria, you have to be 6 years out of your last closed project before you can apply again. That's why I encourage cities to go for the maximum of 6 projects, because it's going to be a while before you can apply again. Highly competitive, and you need those points to be funded.
Carl, I have a real quick question about, probably a dumb question, being it's mine, but the memo says that there's 3 categories, okay? And the memo goes on to say that for Category 1, what the city's obligation would be for up to 6 projects.
Correct.
is it suggesting that there might be Category 2 and Category 3?
The Category 2 points are for how long it has been since you've had your previous program. And according to their website, you are far enough out of that that you would receive all 5 points on the Category 2. The Category 3 is the risk determination. That is factored off of the COG administering the program. We have about 25 to 30 years of good projects with the Iowa Finance Authority, both on their owner occupied. We have them on their rental side, that we own the rental units. And we currently have $850,000 for acquisition rehab with the Iowa Finance Authority. So we have a very low risk determination for you on
Okay,
that.
so that clears it up. You're essentially looking for a total of 6, possibly 6 contributions, not 6, 6, and 6.
No, 6 total
I'm with you now.
contributions.
Okay, perfect.
And that's kind of detailed out in the box that shows you
The
what your different
application
levels
thing.
would be. So you're basically looking at that Category
The
1
scoring
match.
guidelines? Okay.
Yeah, and to
Okay.
be competitive, you really need to be in that 10%.
Okay.
What fund are you looking at taking this on?
Yeah, I was gonna ask her what
With-
we did.
With residential TIF, you're obligated to put a certain amount of that increment into a LMI fund.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And over the next 3 years, our LMI fund will build to, I would say, pretty close to that 22.5, which will give us that maximum 10% or a little bit more of the match that we need. But we'll also go to the local banks and see if we can get their partnership in this also to try and bump our total up. But we're asking for 22.5 to get at least the 10% match.
And that would be for the full 6 projects.
So yeah, it's not 22.5 times 6, it's 22.5 for the 6 projects.
Period, yeah.
Any other questions?
Anything else to add? Any other questions for Carla while she's on the hot seat here? All right, thank you, Carla. Well, back to the recommendation here is just for the council's direction in applying, and we got the funding part answered, so is there a motion from the council to go ahead and to approve this?
I'll make a motion for that.
Second?
Okay, so we have a motion from Kyle, seconded by, I think, Laverne, to apply for the Iowa Finance Authority Down Payment Assistance Program Grant.
Well, I'll just add that I believe the next step, I mean, we'll take a roll call vote on this, but then there will be a resolution.
Need a resolution
Yeah, that
for
we'll
it.
bring back at another council meeting, next council meeting for
As
sure.
early as 2 weeks?
Yep,
Okay,
yep,
perfect.
just to let you know that
Yep.
there'll be more with this.
Good enough for you too, Carla?
That will be perfect.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we still have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Seaman?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Bornero?
Yes.
Schreck? Yes. Bauer?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Very good, thank you. Okay, so now we are under reports, item B is Growing Hope Child Care Center Iowa Community Development Block Grant. And Aaron, you're
Yeah,
up.
we were contacted by Alex Foley at Region 12 also about a CDGB grant regarding Hope Industries, and they're wanting to start a child care center. So our request in this is, in order to get the CDGB grant, we need to put a salary survey and get a overall gist for what the finances of the city are. We have to be 51% of the LMI, or the people in the population needs to be at 51% of the low to moderate income standard for this grant. So we need to put a survey out, and the request is to put that survey out in our utility bill to see how that turns out. We would do the printing and the stuffing into the bill so that we get that. That would be our cost at this point. And then if we get the CDGB grant, we would be the pass-through for those funds. New Hope is here if you want to have any, or would like to give us a little bit of information regarding the project in general.
So that 51% is the minimum?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Steve Kopetsky. I'm the executive director at New Hope. I apologize, I'm getting over a little bit of a cold, so my voice is a little worse than usual. So, but I was just going to give you a little bit of an overview of Growing Hope. It is part of New Hope, and this idea came about a little over 2 years ago. Actually, one of our staff, or several of our staff, had come to us and said one of the needs or employee benefits would be childcare, because we are a 24-hour operation. We're providing care at all hours, and the majority of our staff are female, and particularly females with children. And so that presents a problem, and a lot of childcare stop at 5 o'clock in the evening. So that does present them problems. And we had some fairly good conversation about it. I know New Hope, I've only been there 2.5 years, had thought about the project before, and primarily for some insurance reasons had rejected the idea, or some other reasons. We looked at it a little bit harder, and the more we looked at it, the more we understood this really aligned with our mission. And it really got pretty exciting. The governor's office put out a grant specifically for businesses either to buy slots or come up with childcare slots. We know that in Carroll itself, Carroll's, and I didn't know this prior to this, Carroll's in a childcare desert. There are 4 children waiting for every 1 slot in childcare. And I'm not an expert in this area, but the more I looked at this, the more I saw the need. And we serve people with disabilities. And of that subpopulation of children who are waiting for slots, many kids with disabilities even find it harder to find childcare or after-school care. So it started to align with our mission. Long story short, we applied for a very small grant. In hindsight, we wished it would have been a much larger grant. Not knowing what we were doing to the governor's office, just exploratory. We got it, and I can tell you the state has been very supportive of us as we've gone forward. One of the assets of New Hope, and as most of you know, I'm sure, we've been around 46 years, and we have a very large, very beautiful and nice accommodating campus. It's all ADA certified, of course, and we've got a beautiful activity building that includes a full-size gym, as well as other accommodations, including commercial kitchens. So we wouldn't need to go out and renovate or buy a building or some of the other obstacles that other child cares have to do. So the more we thought about it, the more we engaged our staff, the more it looked like it was a promising thing. So for us to really look at it, the state again sent some consultants to help us with this. Just a couple of quick numbers, so you know, right now they're saying we could serve up to 100 children in this area. Probably the space we're looking at right now, we're not looking at serving 100 children there, but without even really advertising, we've already got 38 individuals, kids that are on our waiting list. We were hoping to maybe next fall to be open. A lot of that will depend on the status of this community development block grant status. If we should be able to get that, that will really jumpstart us to start off, not only to provide services during the day, but we intend to provide services 2 to 10 or somewhere in that neighborhood, which is virtually unheard of in terms of childcare. So we are looking at partners, certainly 24-hour operations like Pella or St. Anthony's have talked to us a little bit. But we're still in the exploratory stage. We're looking for some matching funding to help us. There is some renovation of our existing building that we would need to do to come up to some codes for childcare. But it meets 3 criteria. The reasons why, and Growing Hope is a registered name of New Hope now. And some people kind of scratch their head and say, well, New Hope's done this for 46 years. We've served adults. Why are we going into children? Well, number one, it expands our mission. We don't serve children and parents and families of kids with disabilities. We've gotten emails very touching from families that have said, thank goodness they're trying to do this because we can't find childcare for my kid after school or otherwise, or summer camps. Growth, it's employee benefits. Everybody's talking about workforce. The best benefit we can provide our workforce is a stable and affordable childcare process. I think it's $177 a week average for childcare in the Carroll area. I initially said to our finance people, can we do that at half price for our employees? When they got up off the floor, they said no, but they said we probably can do it a little bit less than probably the going rate. And that would help us also with our workforce, which we face challenges with. And then lastly, and most importantly, it's to give back to the community. New Hope's been here 46 years. The community supported the heck out of us for 46 years. It's time we give back a little bit. So That's what our proposition is. It starts with the survey. We're learning about that. Aaron's helping us with that as well as we read in 12, and we would appreciate your support. And I would also answer any questions if I could.
Steve, did you mention earlier that you plan to be open 24 hours? Your second said something about 2 to 10.
Yeah,
So-
do 2 shifts. We would start like 5:30 to 10.
5:30 to 10:30.
5:30 to 10:30
So
p.m.
not 24 hours,
Not
but
yet.
certainly extended hours.
Yeah, extended hours. We would entertain that. Of course, 24 hours would be a challenge, but we need to see what the need is. So first, it's kind of phase 2 is what we've talked about. However, we are a 24-hour operation, and so is the hospital, and so is Pella. So, there's some nice coincidences there.
Okay, and then would these slots be for just employees, or would you open to the public?
Good question. Open to the public.
Okay,
So
would be
we-
open to?
yeah, so
would
we'd be
there
an
be a
employee.
would there be a first dib
Yeah.
kind of thing?
Yeah.
So if your 38 spots get filled by employees, then there's nothing to the public.
Yeah, and right now, those 38 slots right now are mostly community people have indicated interest. We've done surveys of our staff, excuse me, and we've got about 20 staff who are interested. So even if with 50 or 60 range, we're still under the number that we can serve.
We'd still have some
Yep.
open to the public too then?
Yeah.
Okay.
You talked about special needs. Is that your first priority or only priority? The children you take?
Well, our mission is to serve individuals with disabilities, and that's very broad. So that can be physical, psychiatric, any kinds of disabilities, but there's no age limit. So, we'll take all kids, not exclusively though individuals with disabilities, and they don't even have to let us know if they have a disability. We will just be able to manage that just because of the service that we provide. And we're looking forward to that. We've gotten a lot of dialogue from parents. The level of frustration, the more I learn about the need out there, the more it really is heartfelt, because parents need respite. Parents need, and a lot of times parents will quit their jobs to provide 24-hour care for their kids with significant disabilities. And we understand why, but they need a break too, and so we're looking at trying to provide that need. I do think in the back of my mind, from an economic point of view, there are families who will move based on the care that's provided in the towns that they're looking at. So that might even attract some families to move to Carroll specifically for services that we can provide.
So you talked about 38 children. Is that the first shift or is that all shifts?
That's right now primarily
100.
38 of
38 that have asked to get on the wait list.
for the day shift.
For all along the day.
So what are your numbers for the day shift then? And second shift?
On
and then-
day shift or evening shift, we just can't exceed.
Yeah, we would be licensed for up to 100 on both day and evening shift. At one time, we're not planning on serving 100 at one time right now, I can tell you, if you look at the space. But we've had 38 individuals that have are interested right now.
For day shift?
I don't know specifically without,
Some day shift and some evening.
yeah, it's a mixture.
Okay. There's a lot of room for expansion. if
Yeah,
you can handle it.
definitely. I think once we open it up, start putting out the media, there are, hoops you have to go through for the state, and for good reason. The good news is, the facility-wise, we're already there almost. A lot of our renovation will be cosmetic and, some equipment and things like that. So we're not so much worried about that, but we do want to make sure that when we open, or when we present that to the public, I have a feeling that we'll get a lot of interest very quickly. And we do want our employees to.
Did the region indicate about what they can expect, or what you can hope to expect? What's the anticipated response rate or numbers on this might be? I mean, in a best-case scenario?
I know that we have to hit at least 50%, and Aaron, I'm looking at you. I think.
50% of the population,
That's the
or?
LMI. I'm not sure what our response rate has to be.
Yeah, I
For-
think it's a Region 12 question, and
Yeah.
Alex was going to be here, but I know he,
That's okay.
He's got a sick wife.
yeah,
Okay.
but that's a good question, yeah.
And then, I wish you well with it, but these can be a pretty tall order to get into that 51%. What's the contingency plan?
Yeah, if that doesn't work, well, the good news is there's a lot of money out there. The community development block grant is certainly our preference. Just that's exactly what we'd love to get. And we're, realistic. If we don't get that, we'll look after other grants. They're just a little bit, a heavier lift for us, but it's okay. We'll get that. New Hope is in great financial shape, so we've got a great donor base, and we've got also community partners that I'm sure we'd be interested in. So we just don't want to go there. Yeah, we do have, like, as I mentioned, a phase 2, which would include things like, we wanted to have kind of a mini version of an accommodating and accessible playground area in that area as well. So, that might be all things that we might be looking at in the future. But for right now, the funds will be to get us up and going, we hope within this calendar year. So, but there are other options, and so we'll be looking at those if we need to.
Steve, these employees that will be working the child care, will these be full-time employees with benefits? Or are these part-time jobs
Both.
with, okay.
Yeah, we employ about 317 at any one time, and of those are about 200 full-time.
I think this is a great thing. My only fear is with the Carroll area child care center, be robbing Peter to pay Paul, more or less, as a lot of those employees do not have benefits right now.
Yeah.
And obviously everybody's in a staffing crisis, and it's hard to find people, and then who wants to work the hours? So that would be my only worry or concern. I don't know if there's been any conversation with the child area center now.
Yeah, originally we had approached them about buying some slots. That was what the original grant was, and they're very accommodating. They would love to. They don't. They're the same situation we are. They have no staff, and they're very full. And I think their waiting list was like in 200 waiting. But to your point, that was one of the first things the state came and asked us. They said, "Do you provide benefits?" And we're very proud. New Hope has a very good benefit package for our staff now, and that everybody that would work there would have that same benefit package. That's a real, very real possibility, Kyle, and that's not our intent. But
And on the business side, it definitely makes sense for you guys to be able to do this for employee retention and
we need
recruiting.
staff,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what we want. We want to provide a great benefit package to all of our staff, whether they have children or not. But this is proven already. Just when you look at it, it makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
From a staffing point of view. But our intent is to work with community partners, not against them, because that's not the way. If we want to give back to the community, that's not the way to do it.
Unless I'm mistaken, I think you'd be the first employer in Carroll to provide employee daycare, children daycare. I mean, you see it all over in the big cities, and, here it's a little bit more challenging to do so, but, when you look at, some employers 600, some employers 400, you have 300, it's, certainly a viable consideration, and so, I tip my hat to you guys thinking outside the envelope.
Well, as one of the original staff person who came to us said, it's not far from our mission. It's there, right there, to serve children with disabilities. It will be intermingled with children with non-disabilities. But they said, we have at least 3 to 4 regulatory agencies every day looking at us. They said, who follows rules, who follows regulations better than New Hope? We've been doing it for 46 years.
Right.
It's just a different set, so makes sense.
It's also one way to keep your employees. Otherwise, if you don't have this, then they leave, and you're in that cycle over and over and over again. So if you can sustain your employees with this, they're not gonna have childcare forever, and then you'll have them after that.
Exactly, and also we want to, our value proposition to the community, and New Hope's value proposition has always been, we'll take care of your loved ones. In this case, we could almost say from birth to passing. And that's intriguing. That's what we want to do and give back. So we're not there yet, but we've got some good ideas, I think. And your assistance with the utility bills, that would really get us to a start and see where we can go with the community bill block grant.
Any other questions for
If you're gonna
Steve?
do something utility bill, you'd rather have something marked on the outside of that envelope, otherwise they'll look that up, see their bill and toss it. You gotta make some note on that outside envelope to let people know there's something inside they gotta fill out.
Could be like my Medicare stuff. It says the information you requested. No, that's a joke.
Maybe I'm doing this all wrong. Maybe I should do like you and just throw away my utility bill? Is that how that works? Get rid of it?
Look at the amount, See, mine's electronic,
You do
so I'm
make a
not gonna
good
get
point.
anything in the mail.
Right.
I don't know how you're gonna address
I
that.
was asking Aaron that right before the meeting. I don't know how many,
We send
what's
out,
our mailing list? I'm still old school, but I mean,
I'm not sure how many, a few hundred we email. In your email, it does link you to a web page that has all of our monthly insert, I should say monthly, any insert that we've had. So it's paying attention to see in that email, other than your utility bills.
Same
and-
thing as the envelope, I probably don't
Right,
see that. I
right.
look at the
Yeah, I
amount,
get that.
I look at the amount and
I
I
get
move
that.
on.
And we have about 50% of our customers that currently pay by ACH, so it's automatically taken out of their account. So I totally get what you're saying. You look at the amount, you don't necessarily look at everything
Right.
else in the envelope. But, I mean, that is just the reality that it is. So there might need to be some other type of marketing push to let people know this is coming out, if that's the route we end up going with promoting these surveys that way.
what's council's wishes? Does council want to go ahead and consider approving this, that
Oh, definitely.
our staff would go ahead and
Yeah.
we'd get it, we're gonna cover the cost of printing and stuffing, and the postage we're already taking care of through our utility bills anyway, so. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved. Second,
I think-
third, fourth.
Okay. Yeah. Kyle and Laverne. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bauer?
Yes.
Bornero?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Seaman?
yes.
Schreck? Motion is approved.
Thank you. Okay, item 8C is Carroll First Economic Development Grant Match Program. And Aaron, you got the memo here again.
as we all know, that we had a few questions or requests for catalyst grants earlier this year. I think one of the issues that you all had at that point in time was kind of, we didn't have a standardization of the process, or really had any idea of making sure we had matching funds to do something like this. So this was kind of our first blush look at how to kind of set this up. Obviously, I took a lot of the information from a couple other communities to make what we have here, but the thing I was looking at the most is probably the third page, or the city notes on the scoring sheet, which would be kind of our city internal document to kind of set our standards for how we're going to do this. So if the council has any suggestions or concerns that they want to add, or be more thorough with our questioning or scoring, that would certainly be something that we would look at to put together to make sure we have a thorough package when we approve this finally.
I'm looking at the city notes. Should that be, city will fund 100,000, or should we say up to 100,000?
That's city will fund the 100,000 from lost funds.
It should be up to. That
Right,
was,
well-
that was the directive I had.
The grant is up to $100,000. That's how we're gonna fund, that, I was just making a comment on how we're gonna fund it. But yeah, we can certainly use it, change that to say up to $100,000 from lost, or possibly the downtown TIF area
Right.
if we.
Well, it made it sound like it's 100,000, nothing
No,
else.
that's right.
Well,
It needs to
down
be-
below it says no more than 100,000, that same
Yeah.
spot.
Up
right?
to and no more is what it really
Yeah,
should be
it-
by
one-
definition.
Yeah.
When I asked Aaron to put this on the agenda, and I knew that Misty wasn't gonna be here too, not that everybody has to, it has to be a 6-0 vote, but I just kinda want everybody at least on the same page. I think the purpose behind this, I think, is we're gonna get asked again. I mean, it's just, you know, the writing's on the wall. In fact, I've already heard there's one out there already. But I just want to be better prepared to have a process in place, and more importantly, a policy that, something we can live with. You know, we can all debate whether or not government needs to play a role in economic development or not, and whether or not we provide stimulus money for it, but it is truly our primary cause. And we want to be able to, you know, project a receptiveness to participation, I believe. And what I had hoped that this would do this was something that I've just had in mind ever since the downtown issues earlier this winter. You know, Jeff and I talked about it, but we really thought we wanted to have the new city manager on board. So quite frankly, it's got his fingerprint on it, I think. And Aaron's been awesome on this thing the whole way. Great to bounce ideas off of and banter back and forth. And so what we wanted to be able to do is give you kind of our first blush at this thing and maybe, you know, move it around a little bit to your wishes. But what I hope for this thing to be is I envision, you know, maybe this would be like the building block, the base, you know, step one, kind of the underlying foundational underlayment, you might call it. And then we can talk about other stimulus methods and initiatives, whether it be a TIF rebate or whether it be a tax rebate or whether it be, you know, the myriad of other things out there. When I spoke to Jim Thompson last week, he was very thrilled that we were taking this initiative. And he goes, but I encourage you to think bigger. And think bigger, meaning, you know, they got 4 or 5 or 6 programs down there, which Matt is here and he can, you know, talk. But what I hope this thing to be is just kind of be the entry point to a more umbrella-like, you know, menu, so to speak, I think is a term that I use, that, you know, whether it be a, you know, matching, you know, a low-interest loan or, you know, something of these things that we've talked about. But I would just like this thing to kind of be our first step forward into something that hope to become perhaps much larger and just much more beneficial and produce the results that we all want. So that's just kind of thought. We talked a little bit about the Catalyst grant, and we did get some clarification on that. It is, you know, we talked about whether or not we could do 2 a year, 250s or whatever, but the Catalyst grant is limited to 1 application per Iowa community. Now, that doesn't mean you couldn't have another emergency. So say you could have 1 Catalyst and then 1 emergency, but the Catalyst grant is limited to just 1 itself, so.
And the other point to add to that is, it's probably gonna be 1 in a year, but we probably wouldn't get it the second year, and maybe not even a third year. So you get the grant, and you've got a couple of years to recoup some funds and plan for the next one.
Exactly what Deputy Durham said.
That's,
Get your one and be happy, maybe.
1 and done?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said there's lots of applicants and not that much money.
I asked him, I said, what's the chances of this thing in its continuance? And, you know, he said it's a politically charged question, but he said as long as Debbie Durham is at the helm and the governor's in the helm and, excuse me, the Republicans hold the houses, then he says you can plan on it. But, yeah, because we're already past this year for, you know, if someone would show up tomorrow. But he made it clear to me the emergency grant is still available to us if we could ever perhaps rekindle that.
That still is.
Matt, do you have anything you'd like to address? Thanks for being here.
Sure.
You want to throw anything out?
Yeah, I don't really have much. I guess, you know, the only thing I would say from a Carroll County Growth Partnership perspective is, you know, thank you for the work on it. You know, part of the thing when we have projects come up in economic development, whether it's a grant or just something else, is just always finding the best way to be helping the individual in an efficient and effective manner, to make it easy for them, easy for you all, easy for anyone down at the state or whoever the case may be. So having something like this in place is definitely beneficial for the city, for us, or for any, you know, constituent that would be using it. So, you know, we'd be very supportive of anything like this and are happy to help in any way. There's always a lot of opportunities out there for state grants and other things. And you know, we constantly are also looking at other communities and what they're doing to provide, you know, incentives, if you will, or benefits to their community for economic development. So this is a great thing, and we're happy to see it. So thank you for all your guys' work on it. So
Thank you. Council?
I sometimes think we need to start looking into a revolving loan fund also. Maybe have a workshop on it or something. someday and get some information from you on that. Add to this.
Pella has one that they're using, yeah.
Manning has
Yeah,
one too.
but just to get a mix. But I think it's good, looking at the information online from Iowa Economic Development, our pre-application form is exactly the same as theirs, which I think makes it very easy for someone who's considering this to go through the process. We have to be the applicant. And so I think that was a good idea to take that approach. Looking at their scoring too, the stronger the maximum 30 points maximum. I had to review this. I thought a lot of what would hang in the balance was the match from the city or other entities, and the 30 points maximum weighs heavily on what is contributed to the community. And I think that will get us a good applicant that will really enhance what, help us achieve what we want. So, anyway, that's it. I think this is a good start. Thank you.
He did the heavy lifting.
Okay.
And I think that does bring up a good point. We've, talked about Catalyst grant like it's a word everybody knows, but it is tied to building remediation. It's not, there's an empty parking lot over there and we're gonna go put up a new hardware store or something like that. It's got to be a repurposed need. They have a different word for it than repurposed, but it has to be, an existing facility for the catalyst or the emergency. And we've got plenty of space to fill, so we don't have to go building anything from scratch at today's prices. A lot of the structure's already there, and we've got holes to fill. And so I would hope that this would be something that would encourage some activity in that regard.
There's also some downtown housing grants, but some facade grants too,
Jim mentioned that.
that we should look at along with this, I believe.
Bigger.
Once you get one of these going, it's not gonna take long for other people to jump on board and see what
Yeah.
is available. Look at the small towns around and, I'm gonna use Coon Rapids, for example. They're killing it with their Main Street. Granted, smaller population qualifies for some things, but what they've done with the Main Street on some facade grants has been huge, so.
After we get done with this process, that's my next step, is to go down with CCGP and sit down with Jim and kind of get an idea. What do you mean, think bigger? And so we can get an idea how we can really come up with something that, again, is like Mark said, is kind of a menu type item. Okay, we need this and we need this, or we need that. And, where we can be a partner, not necessarily the sole breadwinner in the process, but where we're the partner where we can help facilitate people to be successful.
Did everybody like the part about skin in the game?
Yes.
Yeah, yep,
That they've got to have,
yeah.
and again, we banded around for a half an hour that day, what is a substantial, personal investment? And, is it 10%, 20%, 30%? I don't know if we can necessarily decide that, but someone to, present to us an opportunity where they don't have really any personal investment, I'm not interested in it. They've got to have personal skin in the game, I think.
Yes, yeah.
The other one we need to look at, like Kyle said, is upper level housing or retails. Jim Thompson said there's lots of available grant money for that. It's easy to get.
And it would help our housing issues too, so. Any other comments, thoughts? Again, I'm not seeking any kind of motion tonight to proceed.
Well, as Aaron and I were talking more in the office about this, on the very first page of the matching program, there's a bullet that says grants will be awarded as a reimbursement upon completion of the project.
Oh, how we're gonna do that.
Yeah, we
Thank
talked
you.
a little bit more
Yep.
about that, and we'll probably want to amend that bullet there and follow more along the guidelines of what the actual Catalyst grant program, the state part of it does. The state does allow for 2 draws, one that, what they call a mid-progress draw, cannot exceed 60% of the total award, and then you would get the remainder at the end of the project. I would suggest that the city would look at that type of a process as well. Since we would be the applicant and would be the pass-through for the Catalyst grant money, we would know what that amount was, and then the city would follow suit at that same time. So I would recommend, before we final approval this, that.
To
we
just
maybe-
mirror that.
We mirror that, yep.
Yeah. Everybody agree?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because I'm sure cash flow through a construction project is kind of helpful.
Okay. Well, it's council's wishes, but I mean, if you guys are good with just kind of letting this at least simmer and thought process, and then we take it back up again in 2 weeks, and then we can vote on it then. Does anybody have any issues with that? We'll just vote on it then. Okay, very good. Thanks. Anything you want to add?
Nope.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Okay, committee reports, there are none. Comments from the mayor, I have none. Comments from the city council?
The only thing I would want to add, with the housing incentive, it's good how fast these things are going out and how many applications are coming in. Just so we, keep getting those coming in, we need to look at something after that. I would be in favor of looking at something to keep construction going, to grow the housing. So when the 20 are gone, I don't want them to just be gone. I want to have something in place where that momentum just keeps going. Otherwise, we're going to stop and we're going to be where we were at before. So whether it's another X amount of lots or we look at something else, that's what I would like to look at or discuss in the future. Probably sooner than later, though, at the rate we're going.
Had that conversation this noon,
So,
Jay and I with Aaron.
Well, it's working. I mean, so far. I mean, now that construction time is here. So.
I had a realtor ask me, he goes, so do you think it's working? And I went, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. I mean, he's probably right. How do you really know if it worked?
Westridge right now.
But I mean, yeah, there's 6 holes dug there and.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd certainly like to think it did. Kyle, to your point, it's, again,
there's
I like to think
2
ahead, but I'd sure like to get these 8 buttoned down before.
Yeah, there's 2 applications that
I don't
came-
want people thinking that time is not of the essence.
No, I agree, but
And because we are going to run out of ARPA funds. I mean, when Mike and I sat down that first day, we knew it's not sustainable.
say round 2. Round 2 is not going to be as good
Yeah.
as round 1.
Yeah, and
So,
there's
Jump in.
yeah,
there's a dozen pairs of eyeballs
You're
eyeballing the rest of those ARPA funds now too. So,
yeah.
I mean, there's lots of places to go with that.
I just look at
We're
this-
not going to have a problem spending it.
The
So.
last set of applications, there's 2 of those on a street where lots have been sitting empty for years.
Yeah.
Probably for 20 years. So it's good that there's something being
Yeah.
done with those.
Yeah, I like where your head is, as long as we just know that there is finality to it.
There was one gentleman that did, he bought 3 lots, and it is because of the 20 grand.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Aaron, go ahead, but if you wanted to talk about,
yeah, I was just going to add,
ahead, you
we've
add
had a
that.
conversation with a company out of Des Moines from, they're a branch of Hubble Homes, it's Origin Homes, and they're talking about coming and doing 5 houses here in town. So that could fill up our spots rather quick, or we might have to decide if we're going to do something with them, but they're looking at the tax credits, workforce tax credits also for, as part of the incentive to come and do those. So those would be just strictly spec homes.
so that takes you to 19 and 20 is all that would be left. So I think it's a good thing. All right, thank you, everybody. Any other comments from the council? Comments from the city manager?
The only thing is I asked Randy to give a little bit of an update on Adams Street. And that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, I can give that. We're, right now, the Adams Street project, the preliminary assessment schedule has been completed. We're preparing this week to get it out to the residents. What's necessary under the special assessment laws is to follow the code in order to be able to certify to for collection with taxes. The process that we'll be proposing or using in this project will include a petition and waiver. So we'll ask the residents that are asking for a special assessment to waive certain requirements of the code and then proceed on through. But it's a time-consuming procedure also, probably about half the time of a regular special assessment project. But we'll get that sent out probably within 2 weeks. We'll be able to begin to get dates set for bid advertising and receipt of bids. Those cannot move forward until this petition and waiver is returned to us by the 7 residents that are involved. So that's kind of where we sit right now.
So now we have 7 that have, okay.
There's, I think, eight
Lost a couple, yeah.
service lines, 7 individual property residents.
Okay. Best case scenario to let bids, and then what, we give them 45 days?
Probably in the range of 30 to 45.
Okay. Any concerns with the construction season?
Sure, there always is. Yeah, the DOT, they've dumped their projects early, and they devour contractors. So we just have to see how that goes.
Okay, any other questions for Randy? Thanks for the update. Okay, I think that closes the open session, and now we would seek a motion to go into a closed session pursuant to Iowa Code 21.5, and that does meet your criteria.
Yes, council is so authorized.
So moved.
Tom,
Second.
seconded by Kyle. Any further discussion? None, roll call, please.
Seaman?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Fordnero?
Yes.
Shrek? Yes. Motion is approved.
Okay, very good. We are back in open session, and the final item of business tonight is item number 14 under the street maintenance facility. And the recommendation is for the council's approval of a change order number 4 to the street maintenance facility contract in the amount of $69,461.92 reduction or credit. $69,461.92 credit. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Tom and JJ. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bauer?
Yes.
Cordero?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Shrek? Yes. Motion is approved.
Perfect. No other business. I'd seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Tom and Kyle. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Dirks?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Cordero?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Shrek? Yes. We are adjourned.